want to revisit afterwards. Good morning to you all and welcome to Women in the Workplace 2020. If you've got a good memory, you may actually remember that this is not the first Women in the Workplace that we've run in 2020. We ran it at the start of the year. But let's face it, 2020 has been a pretty difficult year for all of us, I would say, a very challenging year from so many perspectives. And we felt there was nothing like another Women in the Workplace to cheer the hearts, to give us some optimism. So we decided to schedule a second.
You've just got on to mute.
It's just muted.
Sorry about that. I hope you didn't miss that. Somebody muted me then. I really don't. Obviously, I'm not saying anything of any interest to anybody. So we thought we'd have a second Women in the Workplace in 2020 to cheer the heart and gladden the soul and try and invoke a little bit of optimism as we move towards the end of this very difficult year. And hopefully, please God, 2021 will be a lot better. The vaccine is being rolled out as from today. We've all seen that headline. We all have some cause for a little bit of optimism. So my name is Emma May. I'm Director of Operations and Employment at Work Avenue, and I'm so pleased to welcome you all today. I would like to tell you a little bit about today's event, but firstly, for those of you who do not know and who are new to Work Avenue, I'd like to tell you a bit about our organisation. We were launched in 2006 with one single aim: to help people earn a living, either through creating employment or to help entrepreneurs grow their business. Work Avenue creates opportunities for everyone at any life stage in any situation. From our modest beginnings over a decade ago, Work Avenue now assists over 2,000 people each year find work, develop their business, learn new skills, or take valuable steps forward in their career. We offer one-to-one meetings with job seekers and entrepreneurs, giving them the best chance to make a success of their business and to support their job search, as well as regular workshops on topics such as creating a contemporary and elegant CV, networking, building a business brand. And over last year, 500 people found work with our support, over 100 of whom were actually filling vacancies that we advertised on our own jobs board. All Work Avenue advisors are professional, qualified and experienced to deliver the service that they do and help our clients meet their career objectives. We understand only too well just how hard it can be for people to start their journey into work or back into work, or to define their business proposition and get their business off the ground. We all look around us and it seems that everyone else has a better CV, more relevant work experience, has better IT skills that are more up to date than our own. And it can all feel terribly daunting, especially this year. At Work Avenue, we treat every person as an individual and work hard with everyone to strive towards goals that are relevant to them. We are absolutely focused on achieving those small steps on their journey towards financial independence and not those giant leaps that can bring us crashing down. For one person, this might be picking up the phone and calling us in the first place. In fact, just being on this event today is the first step in the journey for some of you. For others, it is increased confidence, and for others, increased skills. Each step brings you a little closer to securing gainful employment or getting your business off the ground. For everyone, the dream of becoming financially independent and providing for yourself and your family remains our focus. So now to today's event. We have a thought-provoking and packed schedule this morning with a diverse range of speakers, all of whom have generously given up their time to join the conference this morning. You've all received an email. Now, you've all received one just now, and you all received one at the end of last week, which details the full timetable for the event and a Zoom link for each session. All you have to do is click on the session of your choice, and each hour there are 2 to choose from, and you will be taken to that session on Zoom. It really is as simple as that. Between each session, there's a 5-minute break. We're all going to need a bit of a comfort break every so often, grab a cup of coffee, etc. Now, those of you who know Women in the Workplace well, and many of you do, know that Women in the Workplace usually closes with a light lunch of soup and sushi. Sadly, that's not possible today. So instead, we're closing with a Q&A with the Work Avenue team. That must be a huge consolation to you all. A Q&A to the Work Avenue team to address any issues relating to employment or self-employment. Some of you have submitted questions in advance, so I have those and we'll be dealing with those during the session. And we'll be happy to take any more questions as they arise on the chat. So please don't be shy. We do look forward to being able to assist you with any issues that you may have. And now, let me introduce our wonderful keynote speaker, Susannah Kintish, who I do know is on this call now, which is great. Susannah is a partner at Mishcon de Reya law firm, city law firm in the employment department. We're also extremely proud that she's one of our trustees. She acts for employers and employees on both contentious and non-contentious matters, with experience of the High Court, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and employment tribunals. Susannah represented the Jewish labour movement in relation to the referral of the Labour Party to the Equality and Human Rights Commission on issues of anti-Semitism. She also advises on strategic issues, as well as on terminations, redundancies, settlement agreements, and all aspects of discrimination and whistleblowing legislation. She's quite remarkable, actually. She's been recognised by the Lawyers Hot 100 2020 as a standout lawyer, shaping the legal profession in the UK. And she's ranked as a next generation lawyer for employers and senior executives in the Legal 500 2020. Today, she's going to be talking to us, taking us through her stellar career to date. Susannah, if you want to just speak, hopefully you'll come into view.
Hi,
and we'll
everyone.
see you. Hi, Susannah.
Hopefully everyone can hear me or see me.
What I would say, so Susannah's going to take over from now. Welcome, lovely to see you this morning. If anyone has any questions for Susannah, please put them in the chat. We'll handle them at convenient moments during the next half hour. And, you know, over to you, Susannah. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, I've done quite a few of these presentations and talks over lockdown, but you never get used to just talking to a picture of yourself. So hopefully you can all hear me. If there are any issues or you've got any questions, as Emma said, please just type them in the chat and hopefully we'll have time to deal with them at the end. So in preparing for this talk, Emma asked me to reflect on the experiences of my career, which I've done a little bit, but that's not going to be the entire focus of the talk, which I'm sure you'll be pleased to know. So reflecting on my experiences, strangely, I never really thought about my experiences in my career from the perspective of my gender. Just a little bit of background on me. I studied law at Leeds University, and after some time out, I started a training contract at what's known as a Silver Circle law firm, so not the Magic Circle, but the tier below, very, very corporate, based in the city. I would say that I had a hugely positive first experience of the world of work, but having reflected, there were definitely a couple of experiences that stood out in my mind that I thought I would share with you anecdotally. Both experiences actually related to the same seat in my training contract. So for those of you who are not familiar with the way law firms work, as a trainee, generally you move around and you will sit in about 4 different departments, and you'll spend 6 months in each department, with the aim being to qualify into one of those areas. And I was in my litigation seat. It was a hugely exciting seat, experience of court. And during my seat, we were listed for a 4-month trial, which was very exciting. And one of my jobs as a trainee was to arrange accommodation for the witnesses, which was slightly strange for me, even as a trainee lawyer. But you deal with the hand that you're dealt, and that's what I did. anyway, I'd organised this, and I was very proud of myself. I'd organised for a lovely serviced apartment right near the courtroom on Fleet Street. And the day before the witnesses arrived, the partner who was in charge of the case called me into his office, and he said, "I want you to go and clean the apartment." I said, "Sorry, what?" He said, "I'd like you to go and clean." And I said, "But it's a serviced apartment. It's already been cleaned." He's like, "No, I want you to go and clean it. So go to Tesco, buy some stuff. And I want you to make it look nice, and I want you to make sure it's all clean." So, you know, as you do as a trainee, I did what I was told. I went, got some bleach, got some Dettol, went and gave the place a once over, got some flowers, zhuzhed up the apartment a bit. But reflecting back on that experience now, I do think, is that something he would have given to one of my male counterparts? Absolutely not. The second experience was actually slightly more sinister than that, and that was also in the same seat. And I'd managed to get to the end of the seat. I'd obviously impressed with my cleaning ability as well as my bundling ability. And the same partner called me into his office just before I was about to leave the seat and go to my next apartment. And he said, "I just want you to say, well done, you've done a great job. Client loves you. Really impressed. But can I give you a bit of advice?" I mean, obviously the answer to that question always has to be yes. You can never turn around and say, "No, thank you." And he said, "I really suggest you tone down your accent." And I was totally blindsided by this, and especially because, I mean, you can probably tell I'm Northern, I'm from Manchester. I mean, my dad calls me a Southern softie all the time. He thinks I've gone to the wall in the way I speak. So I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He said, "Look, people are going to struggle to understand you, and if you want a career in a city law firm, you need to sound like a city lawyer, and you don't. So you need to tone it down a bit." I mean, the irony being that this partner was from Australia and had a thick Aussie accent. So I remember I left his office, I burst into tears. I went to meet my now husband. And, you know, I think I was actually probably more resilient then than I am now. And I sort of brushed it under the carpet, but it definitely did affect my confidence. And at the end of my training contract, I think I felt somewhat at a crossroads. I hadn't loved any of the departments that I'd sat in. I couldn't afford the luxury of just throwing my legal training to the wall and doing some unpaid work experience. And that's why employment law had this little glimmer of hope. I'd never done one of my rotations in employment law, but I always had it at the back of my mind as something that I thought I would really enjoy. So I did what you do when you want to upskill, and I enrolled in a course at the weekends on employment law, on how to give employment law advice. And I started applying for newly qualified jobs, and I was laughed out of every recruitment firm in the city. He said, "There's just no way, you haven't done a rotation in employment. You know, you're going to be up against people who have done 1 or 2 rotations there. You know, there isn't, and you know, employment jobs are few and far between. You're never going to get a job as a newly qualified." So happily, I didn't let that put me off, and I did my course and I applied, and Michigan decided to take a bit of a punt on me, and I've never looked back. I've been there for 12 years. I've got married when I've been there. I've had 2 children, and I made partner there when I was on my 2nd period of maternity leave in 2017. As Emma said, I've had the privilege to work with some absolutely incredible people, individuals and businesses, and I've also had the privilege of working on some really groundbreaking cases. But as an employment lawyer, it provides me with quite a unique vantage point to reflect on women's experience in the workplace, because I also advise businesses on their diversity and inclusion strategies and how to make the workplace a more tolerant and inclusive place, not just for women, but for people of all different protected characteristics. And having reflected from that vantage point, I genuinely believe that there is no better time to be a woman in the workplace. Now, why is that? I mean, obviously, a talk wouldn't be a talk at these times without reflecting on Corona. And And it's important to acknowledge before I think we turn to the positivity that I think has come out of it, to actually focus a little bit on what a tough time this has been for women. It's really important to acknowledge that the pandemic has disproportionately affected women. Statistics show that if you're a woman, you are more likely to have been made redundant or been furloughed as a result of the pandemic. And additionally, women have naturally shouldered the far greater burden when it comes to homeschooling, increase in domestic chores, and often trying to juggle that with workplace responsibilities. They've been pulling a double shift in every sense of the word. And the data shows us that has led many more women to consider downshifting their careers or leaving the workplace altogether. But fingers crossed, as Emma said, first vaccine's out today. COVID-19 is temporary, but it has brought about some really seismic shifts in the workplace that are here to stay and really ought to make the world of work a far more hospitable place for women. Firstly, flexibility. Pre-COVID, working from home, WFH, was often perceived as code for a lion or not working at all. Flexible working requests, I don't know if any of you had experience of those, but they were often easily rebuffed by businesses with a simple, this job needs to be office-based response. COVID-19 has accelerated the tolerance of flexibility by light years. Having been forced to work from home, even some of the biggest cynics have been forced to admit that flexibility is at least possible, if not preferable. There was a recent survey by McKinsey which showed that 93% of companies now say that more jobs can be performed remotely, and 67% of businesses predict a significant share of employees will work from home will work remotely in the future. This means that many jobs that previously would have been unattainable for women, for caregivers, or for those with disabilities, be that because of the commute or the need to travel or relocate for work, are now attainable. The myth of presenteeism is also being rapidly debunked. I remember vividly being a trainee and sleeping under my desk when I was on a deal. I remember being told that you need to be here for first doors on a Monday morning because that's when work's given out. People gave out work based on whose office they walked past on the way to their desk. So people used to vie for desks on the route, on the walkway for the busiest partners. I mean, looking back on that now, it all seemed totally normal at the time, but looking back now, it just seems like a world away. We've become much more sophisticated in the way we allocate work and the way that work is handed out, and all of that ought to be to the benefit of women and caregivers, and those to whom working in an office environment Monday to Friday 9 to 5 has been an impossibility. Secondly, I think COVID-19 has done wonders for people's attitudes and towards businesses' approach to well-being. It's prompted businesses to grapple with what it means to be truly flexible and how that promotes well-being. There's been a spotlight has been shone on employees' well-being, with not leaving the house, being at their desks, all the things about you never being able to leave the office because you wake up, you're at your laptop, before you go to bed, you're at your laptop. And that has really made businesses focus on what true flexibility means. It doesn't mean sitting at your desk from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, but just doing that at home. It means being able to bring your whole self to work. And I think that's a phrase that we're hearing over and over again in reports that are being done by the likes of McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, all of those sort of authoritative workplace consultants are talking about the importance of people bringing their whole self to work. And I think that this period has really given people the confidence, or if not the confidence, the necessity to talk about how they're feeling and about mental health issues that would just, I mean, even 12 months ago, it would have just been unthinkable, really, to be talking about those in as open way as we're doing now. And I hear it in my team all the time. I have regular catch-ups, and a standing item agenda is, you know, not just how are you, but, you know, how are you feeling? You know, how are you feeling today? What is your mental health like? And I think for people who have perhaps struggled and the workplace has been a barrier because of mental health issues, slowly those walls are coming down. And I think COVID has really taken a sledgehammer to them. Finally, I would say, and this isn't necessarily COVID related, but I think again, it certainly hasn't been hampered by COVID, is data. There have been some really well publicised initiatives seeking to help women get over that broken rung of the ladder and make it into management. And why is that important? It's important because studies show that senior women ally junior women. And what does an ally mean? It means sponsoring them, it means speaking out for them, it means making inquiries as to what their barriers are and helping them overcome them. So the more women that we get into senior positions, the more allies women have to get into the workplace. You know, the Alexander Hampton Review, which aimed to have women comprising 30% of board positions in the FTSE 350, achieved its aim this year in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Since 2017, organisations have had to report on their gender pay gap. And of course, there's been a huge amount of publicity around how terrible lots of organisations are and about the disparity in pay between is that what gets measured gets done. And the fact that we're starting to measure these things, we're starting to measure women on boards, we're starting to measure the difference between pay of men and women, means that things are changing, and they're slowly shifting from these issues being brushed under the carpet to a spotlight being shone on them. The rise of ESG, environmental, social and governance initiatives, I mean, it's the buzzword across the city. But now, you know, when we pitch for work, you cannot put a pitch document forward that only has men's credentials in it. It will just get sent back to you. You cannot have a panel that's all male because people will call you out on it. And I think all of those shifts and the data that's behind them is really, really making it, as I said at the beginning, an environment that is becoming much more hospitable to women. And I really hope that throughout the day, you know, so you see businesses like Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisse, having returnships. I mean, these are amazing initiatives that, you know, 3-4 years ago no one had heard of. And I think once those big corporate leaders start making those changes, it filters down, it has an effect, and people expect it. You know, when you're, you know, as I say, when you're pitching for business, people are asking you, you know, what are you doing about your diversity? What are you doing about BAME? What are you doing about the fact that, you know, you've got 60% of your trainees are women, but only 20% of your partners are women? What are you doing to address those issues? And the more bigger businesses put pressure on, the more smaller businesses are going to have to rise to the challenge. And I really, really hope that during the course of the day, you engage with the sessions. And I know that I know some of the speakers today, and I know that they're fantastic, that they give you the confidence to really take that first step on your journey, knowing that if you manage to do that, fingers crossed, the workplace that you choose will be a welcome and nourishing environment for you. Susannah. And I have finished early because I've seen some questions coming through.
There are, exactly. That was so inspirational, so interesting to hear. Really, really helpful. I'm sure everyone, I for one, found your journey was mesmerized to listen to that. And I'm sure if I was, other people on the group were. And as you've rightly pointed out, there are questions on the chat. I'm going to address those actually. And I'm going to do them in not in the order they arrived, but in an order that I think may flow slightly better, but they will all be addressed. Jane has asked, a lot of businesses are saying that they've seen higher productivity during COVID, which of course is something that it appears on the face of it to be counterintuitive. Do you think this is sustainable or just a symptom of people showing effectively that they're trustworthy and can work from home?
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's sustainable is the answer. And I think that lots of reports have focused on, I mean, the focus of my talk today was positive, but yes, there have been lots of reports focusing on.
Also has to be realistic, doesn't it?
Burnout, you know, COVID-related burnout. But it's a real issue because, you know, even I the other day realised I hadn't left the house for 3 days because I got up, I got my kids ready, I'd logged on, and I'd just done that repeatedly for 3 days. And it wasn't until I'd forgotten to check out my online shop, and I always, to reserve my slots, this is totally by the by, but I always put a bottle of champagne in to reserve my slot because it's over the minimum spend, and I do that in advance. And when Tesco turned up with just a bottle of champagne the other day, because I'd forgotten to add any other items to my shop, it was like, oh gosh, I had to quickly dash to the supermarket, and I thought, oh my god, this is the first time I've left the house in 3 days. And it's precisely that. You can very, very easily get into a rut of logging on and not leaving, and COVID-related burnout is a huge issue. And I think businesses the businesses that I've encountered are really alive to it. And there are little things that people are suggesting, you know, workplace diary management. So not just putting meetings in your diary, but putting walk the dog in your diary, putting, if you're working from home and you have walk the dog in your diary, and people would have thought, oh, well, not letting her work from home again. You know, she's treating it as a jolly. But I think now, you know, increasingly, I think businesses are encouraging you to manage your diary so that you are putting in the things that keep you sane, and it just goes to bringing your whole self to work. So, you know, I've got in my diary, you know, 3 days a week, take the kids. I've got 3 days a week, walk the dog. I've got, you know, log into my online training session, because people need to know that just because I'm not in the office, they can't just fill my diary back to back, which, you know, as Emma has experienced sometimes, I have days where I don't even have a break to go to the toilet in between calls, and it's, yeah.
Thank you for that. Rachel has asked, hi Susannah, can you talk us through your experience of being promoted to partner whilst on maternity leave?
Yes, I can. I think it was, in hindsight, it was the best thing I've ever done, but it was definitely probably one of the most difficult times in my career. Coming back from maternity leave, having left as a senior associate and coming back as a partner was definitely hugely challenging. You know, I was very, very lucky in that I obviously had huge support from the business to go through that process on maternity leave, but it was a huge leap in terms of responsibility, in terms of bringing in business, in terms of and I had 2 kids at home that were not sleeping at all, and I look back on that period as one of definitely the most difficult period of my career, if not of my sort of adult life, because I felt a huge amount of pressure to, you know, come in and nail it and show everybody that I could do it. And at the same time, I was, you know, managing on very, very little sleep. I was, you know, sleeping on the floor of my son's room with my hand jarred between the bars of his cot, passing into sleep, you know, every night. And waking up and having to go and pretend, I felt like pretend I knew what I was doing. And all of a sudden, associates who I'd been working with were now trying to demonstrate that you were somehow now senior to them. I found that really difficult. And I'm not sure I've got any, unfortunately, magic tips other than I had a great maternity coach, who I think turned into a therapist rather than a maternity coach. But it was for me, it was I just had no confidence, and it was slowly gaining that confidence back. But the only way you gain confidence back is by throwing yourself into work and doing it and doing a good job. And when your confidence is low, feeling that you can do that is really difficult. And I think it's just about making sure you've got the right support around you. And if you can get maternity coaching, and it was provided by the business, I had a few sessions and I think I was still such a wreck after it. I've convinced them to give me some more. Then I did start telling people that I was struggling, but not for quite a few months, because I felt like, oh God, I can't. I'm meant to be a partner now. I'm meant to be able to shoulder all of this, and I've got no idea what I'm doing.
Thank you. Now, just going back a couple, I'm conscious of time, but we do have a couple more questions. Fran has asked, what are your thoughts on the changes that are affecting the high streets, stroke retail? And she says, I heard someone in the media saying people should move to caring jobs, but not everyone is right for this sort of work. Now, obviously, Susannah's not a jobs coach, not a careers coach, but I think Fran would be still interested to hear your thoughts on that, Susannah.
Do you know what? I think the high street, I say the high street is having a difficult time. Definitely retail is having a difficult time. Actually, if you look at the high street, my local high street is busier than ever, I think, because people aren't going into town. They are, to the extent that shops are allowed to open, they're spending much more time locally than they are going into town. I would say you have to, if you're embarking on a search for a job, I think you have to think, what do you want out of that job? And what do you enjoy doing? And let that be the driver, as opposed to current market conditions, because markets change all the time. And as I say, I think some of the changes brought about by COVID are going to be obviously long lasting. You see huge retail giants like Arcadia going into administration, but we've seen it before, right? We're at CNA, BHS, we've seen it before at different times. And people love to shop. It's like a phoenix, they rise out of the ashes, and things metamorphosize. So I would definitely say, think about what you want to achieve and what you enjoy, and let that be the driver, as opposed to the current market conditions. Lovely.
And Lorna has asked, can you please talk more on how law firms perceive career breaks on someone's CV? Maternity is one example of that, but not the only example of that. And advice and thoughts for someone transitioning from another professional services firm into law firms in business development. I suspect these are quite specific to Lorna's own situation, but the issue of career breaks on a CV is something that is quite universal.
Yeah, I think increasingly businesses are, with all of their diversity and inclusion, ESG strategies, are really looking outside the normal parameters. And I do a lot of recruitment for Mishcon, and actually, sometimes you're even seeking out something that is different. So I would definitely would not mentally go in with the view that it's a negative, because I think as long as you can articulate quite clearly why you took the break and what it is that you're looking forward to about coming back to the workplace, and why you think that chosen business will offer you the things that you're seeking from a return, I don't think it's an issue. I think it's like any blip in your CV. I think as long as you can explain it and articulate it, and explain why you think the place you're interviewing at will achieve those goals. And actually, I think it's also really important to think about what you've learned as a result of that, and what perspective you've gained as a result of the career break that other people who have gone straight through without wouldn't necessarily have, and the enthusiasm that you're now bringing to the table.
Yeah, so it's all about being the finest version of yourself, really, whoever you are, whatever your situation. I'm conscious of time. We have probably time. Annabelle's asked, thanks, Susannah. Working from home definitely has huge benefits. But what about the informal benefits of being in the office, you know, the water cooler moments, you know, sharing ideas, new people, getting to know colleagues, that side of things, just to balance things out? What do you think?
I 100% agree. You know, those serendipitous moments when you're in the office and you have a chat and you realise that, you know, a new idea comes out of it, they're not happening in the same way. But for me, the biggest issue is training juniors, and the experiences that they get just don't compare to working from home exclusively. However, I definitely think there's a balance, and you know, I do a 4-day working week. Previously I've done all of that in the office because, quite frankly, I felt I had to be in the office. I felt I had to be around for juniors to supervise things. And actually, I think it would be very, very easy for me now to do 1 or 2 days of that 4-day week from home. I don't think at the moment that, I mean, it depends what sector you're in, right? But for me, in my sector, I do think having those moments in the office are really important, but they can be balanced with working from home.
And at 9:58, I'm going to host's privilege, I'm going to ask one final question. I want to thank you very much for your time, first of all. I know, and everyone else needs to know, that you've taken time out from a really busy schedule to address everyone today. So appreciate the time you've given us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very, very much for your thoughts, your encouragement, your inspiration. You mentioned that you had a few wobbles about staying in a law career, and had it not have been for some luck, some serendipitous moments, whatever, you might have changed. What do you think you'd have done if you hadn't been a lawyer?
If I could afford to have done it, I would have been a florist.
Oh.
I think I love flowers, or a garden designer.
So something to do with horticulture, flowers,
something to do with horticulture. Although I think I would have definitely, the reason I love employment law is the overlap between the people and the human element and the law. So you know, having those interactions with people and actually being able to help them at a really, sometimes an amazing time of their life, but sometimes a really difficult time of their life is a real privilege. So yeah.
Thank you very, very much. It's 10 o'clock, ladies and a few gentlemen. Thank you to Susannah for getting our Women in the Workplace conference off to an absolute kicking start this morning. So thank you very, very much for that. Very much appreciated. Susannah, you better get back to your hearing now. So many thanks.
I need to go and put a suit on.
Yes. Everyone, we're now going on to the first of our breakout sessions this morning. Some of you will be going to a session on confident public speaking in the virtual world. You have a link for that. Others of you will be joining What I Have Learned from Inspirational Women in Business. So there's going to be a 5-minute break, and we'll see you all on the next session. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.